The Zenitsu vs Kaigaku. This fight is a tragic showdown between fellow students of thunder breathing. Inside the Infinity Castle, Zenitsu confronts Kaigaku, his former senpai, now the new Upper Moon 6. The battle is intensely personal, fueled by Kaigaku's betrayal, which drove their master Jigoro to commit seppuku out of shame. Kaigaku is arrogant, scorning Zenitsu for only knowing the first form. He wields the other 5 forms of thunder breathing, now corrupted into black lightning by his demon blood art, which cracks and burns the flesh of his victims. In a stunning display of character growth, Zenitsu is not cowardly or asleep. He is awake, calm, and filled with cold fury, fighting to uphold his master's honor. He tells Kaigaku that since he couldn't master the basics, he could never truly be the successor. As Kaigaku unleashes his demonic techniques, Zenitsu counters with something Kaigaku never anticipated, a form he created himself. Zenitsu unleashes the 7th form, Flaming Thunder God. It is a single, impossibly fast dash that surpasses the speed of all other forms. In a blinding flash, he blitzes past Kaigaku's attacks and cleanly decapitates him. As he dies, Kaigaku realizes his fatal error. Zenitsu's devotion to perfecting a single technique made him infinitely stronger than Kaigaku, who greedily sought power but mastered nothing. The fight is the culmination of Zenitsu's arc, transforming him from a crying coward into a determined swordsman who avenges his master. The battle against Upper Rank 1, Kokushibo, was a desperate, multi-stage war of attrition that required the combined strength and ultimate sacrifice of 4 of the Demon Slayer Corps' most powerful warriors. The conflict began with Mist Hashira Muichiro Tokido. Despite awakening his Demon Slayer mark and using his 7th form, he was utterly outmatched by Kokushibo's centuries of experience and overwhelming moon breathing. Kokushibo, a former Demon Slayer himself, recognized Muichiro as a descendant of his lineage and, after a brief, one-sided duel, impaled him against a pillar with his own sword, taking him out of the fight. Genya Shinazugawa was next to face him, using his unique ability to consume demon flesh to gain demonic power. Firing his shotgun and using flesh bullets, he was a nuisance, but no real threat. The tide seemed to turn with the explosive arrival of his older brother, the Wind Hashira Sanemi Shinazugawa. A ferocious battle erupted between Sanemi and Kokushibo. Sanemi's rare Marechi blood, which usually intoxicates demons, had little effect on Kokushibo's immense willpower. Despite awakening his own mark, Sanemi was slowly being pushed back and was grievously wounded. Just as Sanemi was about to be killed, the strongest Hashira, Gyomei Himejima, arrived. His presence immediately shifted the balance. Kokushibo himself acknowledged Gyomei as the most powerful warrior he had encountered in 300 years. The two engaged in a titanic struggle, with Gyomei's long-range flail and axe perfectly countering Kokushibo's extended sword slashes. Gyomei awakened the transparent world, allowing him to see Kokushibo's anatomy and predict his movements, finally giving the Slayers an edge. Victory was only achieved through coordinated sacrifice. Sanemi and Gyomei clashed their weapons together, turning both Nichiren blades a bright crimson red, a state that severely inhibits a demon's regeneration. In a final act of defiance, the still-pinned Muichiro used his last ounce of strength to stab Kokushibo with his now red blade. At the same time, Genya, who had been bisected by the demon, used his final blood demon art to grow roots that immobilized Kokushibo. This sequence of sacrifices created the single opening Gyomei needed. With a combined attack, he and Sanemi decapitated Kokushibo. The demon fought to regenerate, transforming into a grotesque, monstrous form. However, seeing his hideous reflection shattered his will. He was consumed by his centuries-old inferiority complex towards his twin brother, Yoriichi, and his ambition crumbled. Defeated by the Slayer's combined might and his own inner demons, Kokushibo disintegrated, ending the life of Muzan's most powerful subordinate at an immense cost. Obanai and Mitsuri vs Nakime. In the shifting labyrinth of the Infinity Castle, Serpent Hashira Obanai Iguro and Love Hashira Mitsuri Kanroji confront Nakime, the new Upper Moon 4. The battle is not a direct duel. Nakime's power is absolute control over the castle's structure. By playing her biwa, she endlessly manipulates the environment, flipping rooms, creating pitfalls, and shifting walls to separate and disorient the Hashira. Her goal is not to kill them, but to stall them indefinitely. Obanai's sharp intellect desperately tries to find a pattern, while Mitsuri's incredible flexibility and love breathing allow her to navigate the chaotic, collapsing terrain. However, they can never get close enough to strike. The fight is a frustrating stalemate, with the Hashira on constant defense against the fortress itself. The deadlock is broken by an outside force, Yushiro. Using his blood demon art, he attaches a talisman to a crow, allowing him to hijack Nakime's vision and take control of her mind. With Yushiro now controlling the castle through her, Muzan deems Nakime a liability. He kills her himself by crushing her head. With its master gone, the Infinity Castle begins to crumble and rise to the surface, forcing the final confrontation into the open. Shinobu vs Doma. The confrontation between Insect Hashira Shinobu Kocho and Upper Moon 2, Doma, is a battle of calculated revenge, not brute force. It is one of the most strategic and tragic fights in the Infinity Castle. Shinobu's motivation is intensely personal. Doma is the demon who murdered her older sister. Knowing she lacks the physical strength to behead a high-ranking demon, Shinobu enters the fight with a suicide plan. Her initial assault relies on her greatest assets, blinding speed and a custom Nichiren blade designed for injection. She uses insect breathing to dance around Doma, moving so fast he can barely track her, and stabs him repeatedly to inject potent wisteria-based poisons. However, Doma is on another level of power. He condescendingly praises her speed while his superior regenerative abilities effortlessly neutralize the toxins. He toys with her, unleashing his devastating ice-based blood demon art, which creates freezing air that shreds Shinobu's lungs and breaks her bones. Fatally wounded, Shinobu is embraced by Doma, who decides to save her by absorbing her into his body. This, however, is her true gambit. For over a year, in collaboration with Tamayo, Shinobu had systematically ingested massive amounts of wisteria, turning her entire body into a highly concentrated poison bomb, containing 37 kilograms worth of the substance, several hundred times a lethal dose. Upon consuming her, the poison ravages Doma from within, causing his body to melt and his regeneration to finally fail. The severely weakened demon is then confronted by Shinobu's enraged protege, Kanao Tsuyuri, and Inosuke Hashibira, who learns Doma also killed his mother. Together, they fight the decaying demon. Using the final eye-sacrificing form of flower breathing, Kanao lands the decisive strike, finally beheading him. Shinobu lost her life, but her ultimate sacrifice was the victory. She successfully poisoned Doma beyond recovery, ensuring her sister's killer would die and allowing her successors to deliver the final blow. Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza. Tanjiro and Water Hashira Giyu Tomioka confront their fated enemy, Akaza, the killer of Kyojuro Rengoku. Initially, Giyu's masterful water breathing barely holds off Akaza's relentless martial arts. Akaza's compass needle technique, which senses battle spirit, allows him to predict their every move, putting the Slayers on a desperate defense. The turning point comes when Tanjiro achieves the selfless state. By erasing all anger and fighting spirit, he becomes invisible to Akaza's compass. This allows him to land the first truly effective blow, stunning the upper rank demon. As Akaza unleashes his full power, Giyu is pushed to his limit and awakens his Demon Slayer mark. The mark dramatically boosts his physical abilities, allowing him to fight on more even ground. In a climactic final assault, the marked Giyu pins Akaza down, creating the one opening they need. Tanjiro, fueled by the memory of Rengoku, uses his Hinokami Kagura to successfully decapitate Akaza. Victory is short-lived. In a horrifying display of will, Akaza's headless body continues fighting and even begins regenerating his head. This triggers a flood of his human memories as Hakuji. He remembers his fiancée, Koyuki, and that his original quest for strength was to protect her, not for its own sake. Realizing he betrayed his past self, Akaza sees an image of Koyuki in his mind. Overcome with remorse, Akaza cancels his regeneration and uses his own destructive death technique to destroy his body. He accepts his defeat, finding peace in death and ending one of the arc's most intense and emotional battles.